Hey everybody, it's Gary Wilson from Great Lakes Now reporting from Chicago at the Chicago Water Summit. Great Lakes Now is pleased to welcome Gary, Indiana Mayor Karen Freeman-Wilson. Mayor Freeman-Wilson has a long and impressive resume, which includes being a graduate of Harvard Law School. She's a former Indiana Attorney General, and she's been the mayor of Gary since 2012, and she was born in Gary. Mayor, thanks for talking with Great Lakes Now.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to talk to Gary about Gary.
Yes. Mayors of all cities, but especially post-industrial era cities like Detroit, Flint, and Gary have a lot to deal with. There's public safety, tight budgets, school issues, to name but a few. With all that on your plate, what drove you to focus on water too?
When you talk about public safety, education, and the other issues, Gary, you're talking about quality of life. Well, from my perspective and from the perspective of my colleagues, water, clean air, all of those things are also about the quality of life. And I don't think anything is more important than your health, and those issues factor directly into the health of a community.
Mayor, in 2014, Gary received a $250,000 United States Environmental Protection Agency grant to develop green infrastructure. Why that project, and how is it going?
Well, that project was important to us for a number of reasons. When you think about green infrastructure, you typically think about the aesthetics, but for us, it was very practical. It factored into our efforts to develop a long-term control program, and we thought that by using that $250,000 to create a pilot, that it would allow us to really do green infrastructure on a much wider scale and meet our long-term control plan, which was required by the EPA, without necessarily breaking the bank of our citizens. It was a financial and a practical issue for us.
Mayor, I have to ask you about Flint. As events unfolded in Flint over the last couple of years, you had to be observing. What was going through your mind?
Well, you know, when I first heard about the issues and the challenges around lead in the water in Flint, I, of course, knew that it could easily be Gary. Flint is a legacy city. Gary is a legacy city. There are other legacy cities that have the same challenges, particularly with old pipes and old infrastructure. And so that was the first thing I thought about. The other thing that I thought about was how important it was to check our water supply, and that has also been driven home with the experience of East Chicago, Indiana, which is literally our next door neighbor.
Where does Gary stand on lead testing and the status of its pipes?
Well, we have our water supply from Indiana American Water, and they do robust testing, they do frequent testing, and we are in communication with them regularly. They're wonderful partners. So we know that the water supply is free of lead. One of the other challenges, and what we've been addressing and looking to do more extensive testing on ourselves, is the water. Once it comes from the plant of Indiana American Water, it might sit in reservoirs, it might sit before it's actually piped through the home. So we're trying to look at what that supply looks like once it goes through the pipes in the home, and once it comes to the, once customers begin to consume it. And that's a test that is going on right now. That's a process that's going on right now. Because if in fact it leaves the plant, the Indiana American Water plant, free of lead, but then goes and sits because of the vacancy and abandonment problem, and even as it comes through older homes, because we have a large number of older homes in our stock, then we have to come up with a comprehensive plan to address that.
Mayor, how can Gary, is it part of your plan, as mayor, and Gary's plan to leverage the proximity to Lake Michigan for sustainable economic development?
We absolutely intend to utilize our location on the southern tip of Lake Michigan as a source of economic development. We've already developed a beautiful lakefront park on Lake Michigan that has a pavilion that is often utilized for weddings, but we've also started to use that space for a huge air show where we attract 100,000 people every year. We utilize it for runs. We've had a marathon. We've actually had 2 marathons, and then we've had smaller races. And so, you know, the runners tell us, I'm not a runner, so I can't attest to this personally, that it's one of the most beautiful courses in the Midwest, if not the country. And so we want to utilize that not just to get people closer to nature, but also as a development tool. And then we have a community along the lakefront, Miller Beach, where we're seeing our arts develop, where we're seeing our breweries and other quaint restaurants develop, and that's an opportunity. And finally, we're looking to develop a hotel on the lakefront. We think that that will also lend itself to development in Gary.
Mayor, we've only got about a minute left, but for people in the far reaches of the Great Lakes region, I'm thinking Duluth and Buffalo and up into Canada, what's one thing you'd like them to know about Gary, Indiana?
Well, what I want people to know, and people rarely know this, is that we have a beautiful beach, a beautiful lakefront. It's the same lakefront that they have in Chicago, but it's a lot cheaper and a lot more accessible.